Happy to welcome to the ESPN Esports show Erin A Simon. She is a host for Cheddar Esports as well. Recently just joined the eMLS casting team this past weekend in Philadelphia. A big weekend for Fiddle, winning for Cincinnati, the first of 3 eMLS events. We'll get to that in a second. But Erin, let's first talk about, it's been a great couple months for you. An article in Forbes, signing with CAA and eMLS. Just catch us up on everything.
Yeah, it's been quite an eventful month. Like you said, I've signed with CAA as part of the talent team. And then, recently now I'm part of the broadcast talent team for eMLS. And I joined Mike LaBelle, Kevin Egan, and Stephen Keller. And so it's been a phenomenal experience. And I'm super excited to kind of get into this eMLS conversation. I think that eMLS is doing a lot better in terms of translating the competition to FIFA fans and traditional soccer fans, and they're doing a great job. This is, I believe, it's season 3 for them, so they've been progressing since then.
This sounds like a perfect gig for you. On top of the fact that you have a lot of esports experience, you also played soccer in college.
Yeah, it's a very similar transition. I mean, there's still certain components of soccer, traditional soccer, that can be seen when people are playing FIFA. I mean, aside from just a certain terminology that FIFA players utilize, but aside from that, they're using some of the top soccer players from Premier League and etc. And so it's great that I'm able to kind of take the passion that I had growing up for soccer and then bring it into the esports world.
So you've done a lot of work around in and around the NBA 2K League, and now you're getting to do eMLS. Sports simulator titles are something that are relatively small in the esports ecosystem, but I want to get your thoughts after having now worked with both of them. What are your thoughts on FIFA competitive and how that compares to NBA 2K?
I think when it comes to the FIFA competitive scene as well as eMLS, I think they are able to kind of translate the scene and the competition more towards traditional sports fans. And that's kind of like the one thing I've noticed with the NBA 2K League is that there's still a bit of a disconnect when it comes to not only getting 2K community members wanting to be involved and from a fan perspective and just an engagement perspective, but then also getting NBA fans involved. Now, due to the NBA's bargaining act and etc., it makes it kind of hard for the NBA to really be so tied to the league, which is really interesting in itself because eMLS, in terms of MLS teams, they're very much associated, like they're really so much, I guess, involved in terms of their associations with the teams and the league itself. You have MLS teams that are sharing the content from their signed players. You have MLS players that have been coming out. Even on the FIFA side, right? You have even some traditional soccer fans that were coming out. And then later on, I'm sure we're going to talk about Jay Ajayi, who was an NFL player for the Super Bowl winning Eagles at the time. And I'm an Eagles fan, so that was amazing. But even just having NFL traditional fans to come over, they did a great job in terms of marketing that. So I feel like if we're going to talk about traditional sports competitions and esports, eMLS has been doing a really great job, and I think that they're, in some capacities, they're more ahead of NBA 2K League and even Madden competition itself.
So let's talk about Jay Ajayi. I mean, we talked with him the day that it was announced that he would be representing the Philadelphia Union. He was there this past weekend. Wasn't his best weekend in terms of competition, but like in the conversations that you had or what you noticed from him specifically this past weekend, what was it like for him?
Well, one, he was definitely having fun. I think that was the most important aspect. During the regular season, he didn't do too hot, but at least he was laughing and enjoying the process. And also, look, even though this may not be the biggest improvement, he did improve come competition time. Like during the regular season match when he played NYCFC's Diddy, he went 0-8, but during the actual stage competition for League Series 1, he went 0-6. And you could tell that he kind of started to make some adjustments. But I mean, it's very clear that, although he may be a top FIFA player amongst his friends, there is still a kind of talent, or I wouldn't say talent, but like a skill set gap. He's someone who's had to train probably a lot for football and hasn't been able to spend hours playing the game. And then you also have players that have been able, from the esports side, have been playing it for hours and hours for years and years and years. So it's understandable why there's kind of that gap. But I mean, honestly, if he's really committed to this pro career and if he's really committed to kind of building on those important skill sets, I think he can make an adjustment. And I mean, listen, it's the first pro athlete that's made a transition into a pro esports career. So it's the first probably of a few that we're going to see coming up. I'm just happy, though, that he was able to just enjoy the process and really highlight and showcase his love for FIFA video games, as well as even wanting to be associated with eMLS.
And look, at the end of the day, Jay Ajayi doesn't need to do this, right? He's a Super Bowl champion. He's set for life. He's doing this because it's a passion of his, and he has two other events, obviously, that he will be representing Philadelphia at. February 15th in Portland for eMLS Series 2 and March 21st for the eMLS Cup at South by Southwest, right? At the end, after he went through a rough day, were there any glimmers of any conversations, or what did you notice in terms of his morale? Like, was he still looking forward to the next events? Was he rejuvenated maybe because he had things to work on?
Well, from what I was able to see, just because during that time of how the broadcast table was set up, we were a little bit far away, but just from what I've heard, I mean, even when he was on the stage, you could tell that he was very focused, that he was really trying to play the best that he could play. And there was even some technical aspects that you could see that he understands soccer. So that was really great to see. And I just think that, as a competitor, for him, he probably is going to want to come back and improve and get better. And I think that that is the key word. And essentially, it's not just even for him. The main keyword that we're talking on the broadcast was reset. The great thing about season 3 is that essentially that if you do not do well, or if you don't make it to the big stage after the regular season matches, you can reset essentially. And so if, for example, there is a top contender who just returned for season 3, who wasn't there for season 2, Alexander didn't make it onto the big stage in Philly. Now he can be able to regroup and reset and show improvement and growth to be able to make it on the stage for League Series 2. And then if he doesn't make that, he can make League Series 3. I think that the setup of how eMLS is for this season allows people like him, or even Dulce. The conversation around Dulce was that, can he get back-to-back treble win? And I mean, Mike LaBelle and I said no, because the competition is really stacked. But now, he may not have been able to make it to the final stage for League Series 1, but now he can say, hey, let me regroup, get myself together, play the top competitive FIFA that I've always been known for, and get back into the finals for League Series 2. And that's kind of just an overarching theme that we're seeing for Jay, for Alexander, for Dulce, and just even like another top contender, Diddy. We're seeing for all of them. So that's honestly what's going to make this season super competitive and exciting. The matches actually at League Series 1 were very, very exciting, which was to the benefit of the audience, to the benefit of the competition. And then also overall, it just shows how, I guess, the progress that eMLS has, and it shows people that traditional sports games can be very exciting esports competitions and events.
So through all the names that you mentioned, of course, Fiddle came out on top, winning for Cincinnati. Talk about his journey, in particular, what he was able to do in the finals to get this chip.
So Fiddle, when they did the preseason power rankings, Fiddle was on that. So we already know that he is a top contender in himself. But his journey to the finals was super, super crazy. It's probably the wildest out of everyone, and more specifically George Adamu, who he beat. George Adamu is the new face for Red Bull's team, and he also is a top American player for PlayStation. So it wasn't like it was easy competition. That's pretty much across the board for everyone. So Fiddle, when he played Paulo Neto, and then he also played Extra, for Paulo Neto, actually for both games, honestly, he wasn't playing the typical Fiddle gameplay that we are so used to seeing him. He did struggle a little bit, but he was able to one, keep in the game and have major comebacks, especially for Extra. I think at one point it was like the 2-goal deficit, and then Extra came back and scored, and then he came back and was able to tie it. But in the game against George Adamu, he really stepped it up to the test. George Adamu before was able to take down Dulce and Diddy, and did it with such composure. The one thing with Adamu that I've noticed, especially for regular season, is that during regular season games, when there were certain mishaps and certain moments where he just wasn't going to his liking, he wasn't mentally prepared for it. And he mentally struggled, which then affected his gameplay, where he was making bad passes, especially losing the ball too much in the midfield. For those 2 matches leading up to playing Fiddle, he was on point. But Fiddle, just everything that George Adamu tried to bring to him, Fiddle had an answer for. But I feel like it kind of goes back to what I was saying. These matches were who can handle the most pressure and be the most composed. And with Fiddle's journey, having to win the PKs against Neto, to win the PKs against Extra, and Extra also is even harder because that's his practice buddy. So Extra already knows what he does, and vice versa. So that made it even more intense. So by the time that Fiddle got to the finals, he already went through enough high pressure moments that he was able to take Adamu to the test. I mean, he was able to net 2 goals in the first half, and then he's really solidified it by the 31st minute. And George Adamu just couldn't find an Anthony. He couldn't regroup, and he was making really bad passes and bad turnovers in the midfield that Fiddle was able to capitalize on. And this is, and mind you, Fiddle was a top 8 finishing player when it came to the FIFA Global Series circuit. So he is a top player in himself. Now, this is also a big moment for him because it's the first eMLS event win that he has, as well as FC Cincinnati. And honestly, his win just shows you that anyone can win the League Series in the eMLS event for this season. And to be honest, I don't even know if we can predict who will be the next one, but at least he can enjoy it. And now he's going to have to defend himself for League Series 2 when we head over to Portland.
Well, congrats to Cincinnati in one football for Fiddle's victory at the MLS, and in the other football for being able to draft Joe Burrow.
Wow. Poor Cincinnati, dragging Cincinnati here. What's going on? My goodness. That's refreshing though, Erin, because last season it was all dual style all day, right? Like he just dominated. He took the treble. He was the favorite. So it's kind of nice that we have a little bit of uncertainty this season.
Yeah, no, it definitely is nice. I mean, look, even Diddy had a pretty solid performance, and even regular season matches. During those matches, they had in the beginning, the regular season standings starting out ended up being a different set of standings come the final matches in the regular season. Even, for example, George Adamu literally had a goal in the 90th minute against Dulce to be able to make it on the stage. It literally, for some matches, it came down to one win during the regular season match. So that just shows you how intense and competitive it is. And so I like it. I like the fact that you can't really predict. And I also think that having these newcomers that are really established in the competitive scene and having these veterans that are stepping up and even returning players that are really stepping up is making the competition even harder and better, especially for the likes of Dulce. And then it also shows you that, you could be a top player within the overall FIFA global circuit, but you don't write off eMLS. They have some top players as well, and the competition is getting harder and harder. So I'm super excited to see what's going to happen for Portland. And like I said, even after the matches, me, Kevin, and Mike LaBelle, we were having conversations about saying how we didn't even expect these set of matches or these wins to happen during League Series 1. So I don't even know. I can't even tell you who's going to potentially win League Series 2 because it will all come down literally to the big event that's happening in Portland.
That's right. It's going to be Portland, February 15th. eMLS Series 2, South by Southwest, March 21st in Austin, Texas, is the eMLS Cup. Erin A Simon has a lot on her plate, including Cheddar Esports and eMLS, joining the casting team. Listen, if you can make sure that Mike LaBelle speaks as little as possible on the broadcast, we'd all be happy.
Oh, man. I'll try. He is an expert. He's amazing. But no one's gonna shut him down. I'm okay with it. I don't mind him speaking up when he needs to. Or maybe you need to come join us on set one day. So you can shut him down.
I will, just to take the Mike lapel off of Mike LaBelle. Hey, that was a good. There you go. On that note, Erin, you're the best. Thank you very much for joining us.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Coming up next, we talked about NBA 2K. A little bit earlier on. We're going to shift focus to NBA 2K right after this on the ESPN Esports Show.